Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about all of the coaching chatter going on around the sport. There's plenty more to come. I can promise you that. We got one job filled. James Franklin will be the new head coach over there at Virginia Tech. I love the hire. I think everyone loves the hire. Does Lane Kiffin fill another one and then leave another one open over there in Oxford, or does he stay put and then Florida and LSU are looking for new options? Sounds like Florida's meeting with John Summerall. We'll do this weekly just to kind of put a bow on that. There's going to be a lot going on. We'll talk about it weekly, and we will get into all of the updates that happen. There's going to be quite a few of them. But let's talk about the CFP rankings here for a second because they came out yesterday. I don't love them as much as I love the other ones, but let's go ahead and jump into this, and let's get into what were some interesting rankings. If I had to say so myself, it starts at the bottom. Well, actually, let's start with two things that I just have to get off my chest. Why does Tennessee and why does Missouri get to be ranked right now? They're good teams. I'm not necessarily saying they're bad teams. I think they're actually two very, very solid teams that have great things about them. What about their resume makes them better than some of the teams that are not ranked? What about their resume makes them better than JMU right this second? I don't really know. But at the end of the day, they're ranked at 20 and 22 respectively. I don't love it. They will not be in my rankings when they come out tomorrow. I can almost promise you that. JMU, Navy, North Texas, where are they? I get it. Look, it's a group of five conference. I get it. They're not as good a football team. Let's just be plain and simple about that. They played really good football this year. And yes, it hasn't been against the elite opponents that everyone else is playing in a lot of different conferences. But JMU playing great football with a lot of different moving parts around that football team. Navy has one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best playmakers in the entire country in Eli Heidenreich and Blake Horvath, obviously. North Texas, Drew Mestemaker in that offense is downright special, and they're leading the toughest conference in the entire G5, and the other team right below them is ranked. Tulane is the top G5 team when you have other teams within their conference that are above them in their conference. I get it. Tulane's a great team. They have two massive wins over Northwestern and Duke. They deserve respect for those. I'm not arguing that by any means. You also lost by 22 to UTSA a couple of weeks ago. So I feel like we're just not being genuine about what this G5 spot is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about just the team that schedules the hardest out of conference games and then gets to take a loss to a UTSA because they gained up enough real estate in this thing. I think it should be JMU. I really do. I think JMU has been the best group of five team thus far. I think they've played the cleanest football. I get it. Maybe they don't have the massive wins that Tulane has, but my eyes are telling me JMU is a better football team. I'd lean towards JMU. I'm not mad that Tulane is in there. Tulane might be mad because the last couple of teams that have been in those CFP rankings have lost the following week, but at the end of the day, I'd lean towards JMU. I have a ton of respect for what John Summerall is doing. He's one of my favorite coaches in the country, but I just don't think they're the top G5 team right now. I would put them maybe third or maybe fourth in the G5 right now. But we'll leave that for the time being. Right now, we have Houston at 23. We talked about Missouri at 22 for some reason. Illinois sneaks back in at 21. Really good team there. You have Virginia at 19. Stays put. Michigan stays put. Texas all the way down to 17. I don't think that fully knocks them out. What I do think it does is everything has to go perfect. Literally everything has to go perfect for this Texas team to find their way in. They have to win out, which I don't feel confident in right now. They have to get Utah and Miami and Vanderbilt and USC and Georgia Tech all to lose another game. BYU probably as well. I think we can safely say Texas is probably out of the CFP conversation unless we have the two craziest weeks in college football, which are never fully off the table, are they? But let's get to the main event. We have Georgia Tech at 16, USC jumps up to 15, Vanderbilt down to 14, and Miami flips with them. The Miami-Notre Dame debate. Here's the thing. I think Notre Dame's a better team right now. When I release my rankings tomorrow, I will have Notre Dame ranked above Miami. Point blank period. I will tell you that right now. That is without question. I believe Notre Dame is the better football team. I believe they have proven that over the last 10 weeks. Here's the thing. If we get to a world where you have to decide between these two teams, now I tend to believe they'd find a way to bump both teams in there before they would leave one out in favor of the other, but let's just say you have to make a decision between Miami and Notre Dame for that playoff spot. If you put Notre Dame in, all out of conference schedules in college football will be ruined. I'm just telling you right now. There's no reason for a team like Miami or a team like Texas or a team like Georgia or a team like Oregon, any team in the country, to schedule these other tough opponents if you are not going to give them the respect they deserve for winning those games. I get it. It was CJ Carr's first game. I understand all of that. If we watch that game, Miami kind of rolled. They won. They ended up winning by 3. I get it. They controlled that game from start to finish. And the idea that we would not have Miami in the playoff, but we'd have Notre Dame slotted in there is absolutely ridiculous. And frankly, I think it's hurting everyone else in the ACC. I think it's putting everyone else in the ACC down because they're trying to bump up Miami as much as they possibly can to make this look not as egregious as it is, which it is. I'm not saying Miami has to be ranked over Notre Dame. I'm not saying that. I think the full body of work can tell you something differently, even with head-to-head baked in. I really do believe that. If there is a world where Notre Dame makes the playoff and Miami doesn't, it would be the biggest mistake the college football playoff has ever made and will ever make moving forward, because it would fundamentally change the regular season of college football. And it would fundamentally change the way that people look at the college football committee moving forward. It would cause a lot of problems. And frankly, we always talk about ESPN having too much say in what the CFP is. I don't know how true that is. What I am telling you, ESPN would lose money long term if this were to happen, because they would lose games like maybe an Ohio State Texas game next year, or Notre Dame plays a massive out of conference game against someone. I don't know who this would be. I'm just saying a lot of these would be on ESPN networks and they would lose money. All I'm going to say on this is I get having Notre Dame ranked above Miami right now. I don't get it if we get to the end of the season and both of those teams, or neither of those teams, or just Miami is not in the CFP. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. So we'll see how this unfolds. Obviously, with Notre Dame at 9, with Miami at 13, I think it's fair to say it could happen. It would be a massive mistake, and it would cause all types of problems going forward for the CFP, for making it even harder to choose what the best 12 teams or the best 16 teams, or 24 was an idea I saw thrown out, which is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I get the argument both ways. I understand why people think Notre Dame is better. I tend to believe Notre Dame is better right now. I understand why head-to-head has to matter, and if Miami is left out of the playoff and Notre Dame is in, we have a massive problem on our hands. Plain and simple. I'm not sure I get the Utah thing. There's no disrespect to the Utes. I think they're a great team. I think they deserve a lot of respect. I don't get why they're above Miami. I really don't. I don't fully understand what they've done, at least in terms of getting those big-time wins to jump over some of these teams. I think it's a team that could be in the mix, but at the end of the day, unless they get to the Big 12 championship, I wouldn't put Utah in the playoff. Maybe they can backdoor their way in. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't feel very confident that Miami or Vanderbilt or USC wouldn't jump them if they both win the next 2 games. We'll see what happens there. I just wouldn't have Utah at number 12 if it were me. And I think we're heading towards a 10-2 team being left out of the playoff. I think it could be Vanderbilt from the SEC. As crazy as that sounds, I think Diego Pavia could be sitting at home at the end of this thing, because that is very much on the table. A 10-2 Oregon, if they lose this weekend, is very much on the table as well. We'll talk about that game next segment. But overall, the Miami-Notre Dame thing is the main thing here. I don't love that Alabama is below Notre Dame. Don't fully understand that either. I think Notre Dame should be at 10. But again, hopefully it'll work out. If we have a bracket that includes Notre Dame and doesn't include Miami, and they have the same exact record, we have some problems on our hands when it comes to out-of-conference games, and it's going to get even harder to pick these top 12 teams. Real quickly, we'll roll through the bracket here. Ohio State, the 1 seed. Obviously, they are. Indiana at 2, no doubt about that. Texas A&M at 3. I think there was some conversation about Georgia maybe jumping them. I think the undefeated keeps them at number 3, and I'm more than fine with that. Georgia at number 4. Do they want to do this, especially if they don't make the SEC championship? Do they want to not play a game from when they play Georgia Tech on, I believe it would be November 29th, to when they play January 1st in those quarterfinal games? I can't imagine Kirby Smart is too keen on that idea. Obviously, you get the month to prep, you get the month to practice. It is a long time to not play a football game, and I don't think that would be ideal for Georgia at all. I think they should be kind of hoping for Texas Tech to jump them if they don't make it to this SEC championship. If they do, then wherever you place them, I think it's not a big deal. But that 4 seed, if you're not going to make the SEC title game, is a little bit off. And another example of why these mega conferences are downright ridiculous. But Texas Tech comes in at the 5 seed. They would face off against Tulane right now. Again, Tulane, that G5 team has lost, I believe, the last 2 weeks. Got to be careful this weekend. But Ole Miss would play Miami. Very interesting game. Again, why are we putting Miami in there? I get that they have a chance to get in as an at-large. They're not getting in as the ACC championship or champion. Why can't we just put Georgia Tech in there for the time being and then see if Miami can backdoor their way in? Just a weird cosmetic thing. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but I just think that's odd. But Oregon would play Alabama. I'd love to see it. There's no doubt about that. Bama being below Notre Dame, I talked about it. A little bit weird to me, but at the end of the day, Oklahoma will play Notre Dame. Just 2 defensive masterminds going at it. Would be incredible, incredible stuff to watch. This will not be the bracket at the end of it. I can almost promise you. There will be changes over the next couple of weeks because that's what college football is all about, but we'll talk about it as it unfolds. The Miami-Notre Dame thing is going to be very complicated. And by the time we get to the end of the season, if we have a conversation to be had between those two teams, they better pick Miami or it's going to get really, really messy in a hurry. But we'll talk about all of that as it unfolds. Obviously, we got some games to pick. We got 4 big games as I see it going into this weekend, and we cover every single conference in these games. So let's talk about it right after this, so stick with us.